Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sandra Seacat Virtual Theater here at Arizona Actors Academy. We are so joyful and so glad to have you here for our Friday night readings. Friday night readings are a really cool part of the work that we do because we give both actors and most especially the wonderful playwrights who have been working tirelessly to create beautiful pieces of art the ability to see them and hear them for the very first time. So it's not just in their imagination and on the page and being discussed with their friends and colleagues and possibly enemies, but here with everybody else. And so both for you who are at home watching us and for everybody here who's in the audience, you really are part of this dynamic creation. So your response to what is happening on the stage, it really matters. It helps inform the playwright what is landing and what's not. So if you want to laugh, I like, ooh or ah, huh, right? You can do all of those things because again, it will help the playwright to understand kind of what's going on. And then at the end, we will have lovely feedback. So without further ado, I would like to pass it over to our lovely Isaac, who will introduce our playwright for this evening.
All right, hello. Hope you all can see me. We're about to do a reading of The Last Gableton by Haley Rice. Haley Rice is a creative producer at MCS Studio here in New York City. She's a screenwriter, a television writer. She has written several plays that have been done at the Paradise Factory here in New York City, at the Off Broadway Short Play Festival, Samuel French, and the International Human Rights Festival. Her screenplay, The Last Gableton, was selected for the LGBTQ Toronto Film Festival, was a quarterfinalist in the Vancouver International Women in Film Festival, and a finalist in the Downtown LA Film Festival Screenplay Competition. She runs a writers group called Writer's Block here in New York, and we're so glad to be reading this play here. Just a quick thing for those of you that haven't seen these readings before. We have a very simple kind of design here that is for the playwrights, and we're excited to all have you here. But this is not really like a presentation of a show. What we do is we get a playwright, they send us a play. We read through it once on Zoom. We do a few quick sort of text notes, acting ideas about the show. And then we have an hour tonight before you guys started coming in where we just sort of roughly sketch out a few blocking, staging idea things. And we put the actors on stage, scripts in hands, and say, follow your instincts, go for it. This is all for the playwright to hear it. This play started as a screenplay and is being adapted into a play. There's 2 acts, so we'll take a 10-minute intermission. I can't remember if Rachel said that or not. After the first act, we'll come back for the second act. After that, we'll take a super quick break, like 5 minutes, and then we'll have a talk back with the playwright. Whenever a new work, as Rachel was saying, is read to an audience, your response, your questions, your laughter, your silence, all informs the playwright about what's working, what's not. And this is just an incredible opportunity for both the playwright and also for the actors here at Azah and for you to be a part of this community. This program does depend on donations and the support of the community here in Phoenix. So I believe there's a little donation station set up somewhere, hopefully, with a little QR code that you can scan. It'll take you to the donation page. Any little thing helps. Big donations help a lot. There should be some snacks there. Yeah, thanks so much. I always like to say these things, our history is made up of the stories that we choose to tell. And I just want to thank you all for choosing to be a part of this story tonight. Thanks so much and enjoy the reading.
The Last Gableton, a play by Haley Rice. Scene 1. The year is 1899. Hildegard Ashdown lights a candle in a dark void. Dressed for bed, she surveys her surroundings carefully before she kneels and lifts a floorboard. She quietly pulls out several books before she finds the one she wants. In a different space, Elijah Gableton sits on the floor, toying with a pocket watch, staring into the void.
Not that you lied to me. But no, I can't believe you. No one can construct for you the bridge upon which precisely you must cross the stream of life. No one but you alone.
Hildegard contemplates this. She hears a noise off. She blows out the candle, snuffing out the light over Elijah. In the darkness, the sound of galloping horses slowing to a halt. An open carriage appears as Nathaniel, a quiet palace blacksmith, quiets the horse. Next to him, his daughter Daisy sobs softly. He helps her down and gently wipes her tears, but without sympathy.
Which way?
Daisy lifts a shaking hand and points. They go. The lift of a window, steps down a hall. In the darkness, ornate empty frames appear and overwhelm the stage, towering over the silhouette of the duo as they move through the darkness. The creak of the stairs, the twist of a doorknob, and then a young man's scream, scuffle, then a thud. The embers of firelight come up on Nathaniel and Daisy now in the master bedroom of Gableton Manor, and Elijah Gableton bound and writhing on the floor. His father, Henry Thomas, and mother, Alice, look from their beds, dazed.
What's the meaning of? I see my son's antics have gotten him in. Father, you will not speak.
Nathaniel yanks Elijah's head back, knife dangerously close to his jugular. The room freezes.
Daniel, you know me. You know our family.
He's not getting away with it this time, Henry Thomas.
Your daughter has worked in our house for.
I wouldn't be
years.
recounting my mistakes right now if I were you.
How can we resolve this?
I'll give you two choices. Have him marry Daisy and the babe will be born.
Impossible.
No, that's for the second, Gableton. It's more than he'll want to.
The second, Nathaniel.
Either your boy marries my Daisy or I walk out with his manhood.
What?
He's just a boy. He's no saint.
So you maim him like one of the geldings in the stable?
Like the mercy the world would show my daughter, my bastard grandchild. Mercy, dear God. You want mercy? Have him wet.
You know it would ruin us.
These choices were written by his own hand when he touched my girl.
Please.
Nathaniel grabs Elijah by the throat.
Please, boy, please. Did the Miller girl say please when she found out she was carrying? What about the O'Hara family when they had to send their little girl in there?
He's going to kill him.
Nathaniel, he can't breathe.
And the Hastings daughter who died, they say she had a procedure. Did she beg you to stay? Did she say please? There's my only child. And she is my
Father. Nathaniel begrudgingly lets go of Elijah's throat. As Elijah chokes for air, Nathaniel thrusts a fire poker into the burning coals.
What'll it be then?
He pulls out a pistol and points it at Henry Thomas.
Don't test my patience.
Go to the gallows.
I've made my peace with God. An eye for an eye, Gableton. He will reconcile his debts.
I'm sorry. I promise I'll never do it again.
Nathaniel gives Daisy the pistol.
I show you. Please don't. His fate is as sealed as yours.
I'll marry her. I'll marry Daisy. I will. Tell him. Tell him I'll marry Daisy. Father, please.
Daisy watches on helplessly as Nathaniel wrangles Elijah and undoes Elijah's trousers as he writhes and flails against the strings.
Hold his legs.
Father, please.
Father, I said.
No.
I would not flail, boy. I don't want to take more of you than a mother's.
Mother, don't let him hurt me, please.
Alice covers her ears and chokes out the Lord's Prayer. Completely abandoned, Elijah becomes incoherent. Nathaniel holds his knife steady. For a brief moment, he looks uncertain, looking at Henry Thomas.
Quick as the horses.
Quicker.
Darkness. Elijah's blood-curdling scream. The sizzle of iron cauterizing the wound, Elijah's low moans. The room reappears, and Alice holds a catatonic Elijah. Henry Thomas stands by, defeated. Nathaniel wipes his knife and returns the fire poker to its rightful place, a small, bloody burlap sack in hand. He turns to see Daisy still faithfully pointing the pistol, but her whole body shakes in horror. Nathaniel gently takes the weapon from her and she crumples. Nathaniel looks at the Gabletons as if to say something, but he does not. He and Daisy exit. Henry Thomas looks at his maimed family, then up at the frames of the Gableton lineage above him. They loom above like innumerable stars of the heavens. Scene 2, Blackwood Mansion. The year is 1900. An extravagant party, elaborate dress, expensive food. Hildegard stands apart from the crowd, counting the crystals on the chandelier. Madeline Blackwood leaves her snickering friends and approaches Hildegard.
Hildegard, are you having a nice evening?
Did your father intend to have 27 candles lit on the chandelier? Because there's only
suppose
26.
That's strange, Hildegard. Perhaps the maid missed one.
Do you know in some places they have the ability to light candles without fire?
Oh, Hildy, you've always been a queer one. Come join us in the corner.
No. I prefer to be away from what could far kill me.
Hildy, how else will you get the chance to speak to young men hiding over here?
That is my purpose.
Hildy,
Hildegard.
why on earth?
I find many do not have anything interesting to say.
It's not their words we find interesting.
Noah Cartwright and his entourage of boys make a joke, sending the group of girls into a fit of giggles.
Then success.
Hildy,
Guard,
may I ask you a question?
if you must.
Why haven't you married? Surely you've had offers. You're almost what, 25? When your father passed, my mother said he left you a large dowry. So it couldn't be that. She says your mother has been attempting matches for years. I just feel for you, my dear one. If I were still a maid by 25, I would surely kill myself. What I meant to say, Hilda, is that there are several bachelors here tonight. My father knows Widower Jones. He's always by the drive through. I happily introduced you.
Thank you, Madeline. That's later.
Hildegard exits, overwhelmed. Alice and Henry Thomas appear at the door. Elijah is with them, sullen and distant. Whispering scatters through the party guests, catching Madeline's attention as she makes her way excitedly through the crowd.
Mr. and Mrs. Gableton, so good of you to come. And Elijah, after a year abroad, wonderful to see you.
It is a pleasure, Madeline. Elijah is thrilled to be back after his time away.
Elijah, you must promise me a dance and tell me everything.
I'm sure he'd love to, after a drink, of course. You know how shy he can be.
Shy? Did the Spaniards send back the wrong Elijah?
Noah spots Elijah and bursts through the crowd.
The prodigal son has returned. Forgive the disturbance, my lord and lady Gableton, but you can imagine the heartache I've missed with this one. So before Miss Blackwood tries to carry him off to the chapel, the lads and I plan to partake in the revelry of youth. You understand.
Noah drags Elijah off.
Be sure to try the figs.
Madeline, Alice, and Henry Thomas disappear. Hildegard searches for a safe place to hide. She finds a quiet room with books. She sighs with relief. Noah, Elijah, and the young men stumble outside away from the guests. Noah holds out a bottle of whiskey.
Compliments of Lord Blackwood. And I would let her with honor. What's the matter with you, Elijah? You disappear before the Kensington's party without warning, without so much of a hint of your plan. I had to find out from your mother, who was livid when she found me climbing into your bedroom window, that no, you're not ill, not drunk from a week-long bender, and no, not even dead. You're on a journey across Spain, without so much as an appropriate invite to yours truly. Can you believe this, man? And now you return from the dead without so much as an apology or a laugh. What happened to that golden laugh, Elijah?
Madeline charges in.
Noah Francis Cartwright.
Hmm.
Noah, you promised you wouldn't sell him.
Oh, cousin, haven't you learned after the Great Dolly Massacre of 1886 to only expect betrayal at my hand?
Noah, this is my party.
And we intend to enjoy it far away from you.
This was not the agreement. I'm going to tell father.
Tell Uncle Blackwood what? Exactly. That his daughter snuck into his cellar and stole his finest whiskey to bribe his favorite nephew to deliver Elijah Gableton.
That's not, I would never.
If anything, I'm the victim here. Accepting a gift only to find out that you, cousin, are using me to get a man into your bed, you Jezebel.
Madeline, humiliated, bursts into tears and leaves.
Don't worry, Madeline, darling. We'll take care of the evidence for you. What? I just saved you hours of dance cards and domesticated dribble.
Don't pretend any of this is for my benefit.
Well, of course, some of it was for my own pleasure. It is my last summer of amusement, after all.
Father Cartwright's still insisting on law school?
Orientation September 15th, and the NUI of scholarly life, followed by the day-to-day drudgery of the honest man, presumably involving marriage, and then any and all enjoyment of life as we know it's finished.
The worst kind of torture is ahead of you, I see.
To you, Elijah. All night you've spoken next to nuts, and alarmingly not a single drink. The Elijah I know would have made us fight for a swig and polish half a bottle off himself. And we all know the true torture is a dry social event.
Noah holds the whiskey bottle out to Elijah, a scandal. Elijah decides to take it.
Lads, he's back.
Cheers from the entourage. Elijah relaxes for the first time. Benjamin Blackwood emerges from the entourage, gesturing for the bottle. Elijah holds it out, then yanks it away in a game of keep away to the amusement of the entourage. Noah looks on. Elijah meets his eyes, and for a moment it feels like the old days. Elijah finally relinquishes the bottle to Benjamin.
Elijah, I want to hear about the Spanish girls.
Yes, every detail. What I'm owed for my abandonments.
What is this? Elijah's shy about his escapades?
Perhaps Spanish women were too much for him.
A woman, too much for Elijah Gableton?
We all know that no woman is too much for Elijah Gableton.
Noah playfully grabs Elijah's groin. The entourage doubles over in laughter, unable to see Noah's face. But upon contact, Noah realizes immediately that something is not right. Elijah stumbles away from him in horror. George Blackwood and Madeline enter.
Noah,
Uncle, this is a rather private gathering of sorts, but we'll make an exception just this once for non-members.
Benjamin slips Noah the bottle of whiskey.
Uncle, any chance you like whiskey?
All exit. Elijah stumbles through the party, mid-panic attack. He finally finds a door, barges in, and slams it shut. He turns and sees Hildegard, book in hand.
Hildegard, I didn't know you're here.
Yes, it seems that to be the general consensus of these things.
No, I only meant,
I knew what you meant.
can I, do you mind if I just,
Do what you want. What's wrong with you?
I think
You're behaving strangely.
as with you?
Yes, I always behave this way.
Well, you aren't one to judge, are you?
Never in our lives have I seen you pass the chance to participate in group debauchery.
I've never seen you give reason why you skirt boys for books.
Right, it seems I get both.
What's on the menu this evening? Austin, one of the Brontes, or the titillating poetry of Emily Dickinson.
Poetry exhausts me. All that rhyming nonsense.
The history of ancient Greece. Quite the page turner.
Members of the responsibility state, the community would also raising its citizens to expect a life of military service.
As I said to the way,
Go ahead with your mockery. Someone should know who we are.
Sparta?
Yes. Spartans are bound by their society to live a certain way. Just like we are. Not all of us can go bounding across the world whenever we please, like Spartans. I too feel like bound to societal rules, powerless over my fate. It's terrible. There's something comforting reading about it. They survived it too. You haven't been here, have you, Elijah? Do you remember my father, Elijah? And I remember him fondly too. I find it interesting how the masses can overlook the eccentricities of the wealthy. But I remember him from your bizarre gait, tattered top hat. No matter how often my mother told him it was out of fashion, and that little dance he would do for the children while wearing it. Yes, he lived exactly how he wanted. He even enjoyed when it made others balk. Behind closed doors, Elijah, he was not that jovial man. He gave me books on melancholia in hopes that, if not for the remedy, then at least for someone to understand the dark parts of himself. I did not know you, Elijah. You may have grown up in proximity, but it may have been miles and miles. Let's have an occasional run at a party. You're strangers. The darkness you should have walked in with, I know that. But you should know. You're not alone in it.
They share a moment caught in the painful place of wanting to and not wanting to be seen. Noah bursts through the door.
We must speak.
I'm afraid that is an impossibility, as I have just promised Miss Ashdown a dance.
Oh, no.
Get out of the room, books still in hand, Noah on their heels, and lose them.
Cannot avoid me forever.
Elijah and Hildegard disappear into the swirl of dancing couples in the great room. Hildegard is distressed at dancing, Elijah at losing Noah. But by the end of the dance, both are enjoying themselves. As the song ends, Alice and Henry Thomas approach with Madeline closely behind, and Elijah's smile fades.
Don't think for a minute you are escaping without a dance.
I'm afraid I promised Miss Ashdown the last dance.
Don't be silly. The band's playing all.
Good night, Miss
Right.
Ashdown.
Is that book from the library?
No.
Elijah swipes the book from her as we exit. Hildegard holds up her empty hands. The jealous Madeline storms off.
It's like the Blackwoods have a thief in their midst.
You know, it's a chandelier too?
Sorry.
Oh, I thought you were referring to that. I'm like candles in the chandelier.
Suppose the butler missed a few.
14 to be exact. With 72 candles total, it can be easily missed. But if you look really closely, you can see that every unlit candle is missing a small crystal just beneath its sconce. Not a fortune on its own, perhaps $18 a prism and 14 already gone. They're looking at a loss of at least $250. Additionally, with perhaps 6 no 7, more 7 social events this season, that can mean $378. Also consider the possibility that the next person is in queue is just as easily as vulnerable. That can mean.
George, need some paper.
He saunters off. Hildegard is left with Alice.
Apologies for Elijah's abrupt exit.
Oh, there's no need.
He's had a difficult time adjusting after
This time away.
Henry Thomas marches back in. Sure, he has bested her and smugly shows her his work.
You forgot to carry 3.
Darling, my headache has returned. Please forgive us.
Alice leaves and Henry Thomas, after one last look of curiosity at Hildegard, follows. Hildegard stands alone as the party continues around her. She touches the back of her hand where Elijah kissed it, and a smile spreads across her face. Scene 3. Hildegard sits at a piano looking as if she is playing, but dissonant chords are heard. The piano turns to reveal Hildegard is reading a book, elbows occasionally pressing down as he turns a page. In a separate space, Elijah lounges in his room, clicking a pocket watch open and shut. Alice enters, sealed envelope in hand. He tries to ignore her. Back with Hildegard, the sound of clicking heels. At first, Hildegard does not register, but then jumps up in fear.
Mother.
Hildegard hides in the piano bench and scrambles to play a Bach invention badly.
Dear Mrs. Etta Ashdown, my son Elijah expressed to me how lovely it was to converse with your daughter at last night's Blackwood.
Elijah argues with Alice and excitedly shows Hildegard the letter. Hildegard is confused.
He gave me the impression that the sentiment was reciprocated. Perhaps should you think Hildegard would agree, we could arrange for tea?
Henry Thomas walks in on the argument between Elijah and Alice, and both rope him into the fight. Hildegard takes the letter and examines it and begins to question it. Etta's excitement is wounded and she begins to get frustrated.
Elijah would prefer as early as this afternoon. We look forward to seeing you at 4 o'clock. Sincerely, Alice Gableton.
Henry Thomas tries to mediate, but as the argument builds, Henry Thomas snaps viciously at Elijah. The three frozen in an eerily similar position from that fateful night. Defeated, Elijah exits. Alice gives the letter to a servant. Hildegard and Etta's argument heats to a boiling point.
You stupid girl, you wouldn't let this opportunity slip you
At
by.
this point, then I'll be evading humiliation.
Hildegard Ashdown. Alice Gableton is one of the finest ladies in this town.
So then why should we want her only son concerned with the town outcast?
Because, you're not the town. Okay, you are a fine match for her.
You can't even say it, mother.
Hildegard, the parameters of your father's inheritance. Upon his death, were that you two to marry and to have a family in order to receive any.
I know, mother, which is why I resent every day.
So do I, Hildegard. I expected you to have made good on your trust 5 years ago, but here you are, still in my care. And my monthly stipend was calculated with the understanding that it would only need to support my standard of living.
Mother, what are you saying? Financially, we're fine.
I am fine for now. But I urge you, please, daughter of mine, I don't want to spend my last days keeping my head just above the rising tide. That match could change everything.
What I'm afraid of.
Marriage isn't all bad, dear.
I just want to be left alone.
There'll be plenty of time of that, I promise you.
Why would father ever require that me? Marriage, I mean. When I knew I adored my solitude, just as he did.
Hildegard, please don't ask me to decode the miseries of that man's thought. I knew him a lifetime and I never got a single answer.
It just doesn't make sense.
Hildegard, you are the daughter of a noble family. So perhaps you're known for being a little
Strange.
unconventional. Yet, however, the bloodline is sturdy and the Ashdown name is known.
And you don't find it suspicious in the least that the golden boy of Elijah Gableton has acquired a taste for the homely and medic.
Etta takes Hildegard's face in her hands, smiling.
Dear heart, you cannot build empires on beauty.
Hildegard smiles back. However, Etta continues to hold her face, squeezing it harder and harder. Discomfort, then fear comes over her. But Etta keeps smiling.
Where's the book, Hildegard?
What book?
The one you were reading when you made that wretched noise on the piano.
Hildegard strains against her mother's grip, and Etta suddenly lets go, sending Hildegard stumbling. She sheepishly retrieves the book and hands it to Etta. Etta looks at it painfully for a moment and hits Hildegard across the face with it.
No books in this house. That foolishness died with your father. Be ready for the carriage. 3 o'clock. I don't want to be late.
At the click of the latch, Hildegard starts to break, but she wills herself to stay calm. She returns to the Bach convention. Scene 4, Gableton Manor. In the parlor, Alice, Henry Thomas, Hildegard, and Etta sit. All but Etta, chatters on, look uncomfortable.
What
And every time we pass the Richardson's farm, I've seen another. I mean, at first I was sure there was no correlation between the two, but after that first one, I did notice a little difference in the taste. So I'm sure that, the brown ones do have tastier milk than the black ones. I tell you, I dare any patron of the Richardson Farms to tell me otherwise.
Indeed, the point is probably moved.
Elijah stumbles in, fellow and tardy.
Well, isn't it our gracious host, Hildegard and I were thrilled at your invitation. Isn't that right, Hildegard?
Utterly.
I was thinking of going for a walk.
Elijah, we have guests.
I see that, Mother. I thought I'd invite Hildegard along to give you and Father a chance to discuss Miss Ashdown's appreciation for
Elijah looks
Tea.
to Hildegard for help. He taps a teacup.
Alice, are you also a tea connoisseur? We must compare palates.
I'm committed to steal her away.
Of course, to be young again, right, Alice?
You won't leave us for too long.
Wouldn't dream of it later.
Elijah and Hildegard exit.
Well, I cannot tell you how overjoyed I am finally to talk to somebody who shares my personal passion. Alice, tell me, what is your favorite flavor profile? No, let me guess. I love a spicy yet earthy Darjeeling. It's too exotic for you. Perhaps a medium-bodied oxidized oolong. Quite lovely, but probably too much for your delicate palate. So, but then I'm not one for those green cheese. Then maybe you are. I find them to be a little. What's the word I'm looking for?
Bitter.
Yeah, that.
Etta continues the chatter as Alice squeezes her eyes tightly shut and Henry sips in silence. Elijah and Hildegard walking on the grounds.
I'm sorry, my mother seems to in her head.
As well as mine.
Oh, so you didn't?
You
You didn't send an invitation,
Won't my mother.
but you didn't express how lovely it was to converse with me at the Blackwood party. I thought not.
Does that sound like me?
Just say what sounds like you anymore, Elijah. Last night you hid in the library at the party and used a dance with me as excuse to avoid talking to Noah Cartwright.
That's not what.
And now I'm getting an invitation to call on you. But then you tell me you have no involvement. So whatever joke the Gabletons are having at our expense, I will not allow myself nor my mother to be willing to participate.
There's no joke. Swear it. I only meant that I don't write letters. I don't have ideas. What kindness you granted me, even thinking I have any say in who comes and goes in this house, in my life. Mother looked at us at the party and saw those things that only mothers see. And truthfully, I may have resisted when she broached me with the idea, not because of anything to do with you, because of me. In regard to me. All I can say is of all the invitations sent in my name, I've only entertained one.
Back in the parlor,
So tell me, Gableton, how are things at the factory? Did Elijah's trip abroad put him behind, or is he prepared to take on some of the reins, Henry Thomas?
Well, Elijah's always been hesitant in his responsibilities to the family.
Not that he won't step up and do what's right. He's just young.
Europe gave him some independence he was probably craving, no? Prepare him for the responsibilities of a family.
It's the hope, yes.
And it did. He is.
Well, of course he is.
He is.
He's good. He's a good.
Eight. Back on the grounds,
Forgot.
Elijah reaches into the back of his trousers and pulls out the book he swiped for Hildegard at the party.
What's wrong?
My mother, she doesn't like it when I read.
How did you learn them?
I was in school with you, Elijah. I sat a row behind you. And you split pigtails and call me Brune Hildegard. Well, when it came time for girls to stop attending, I still wanted to go. My mother said it wasn't proper. My father said he didn't see the harm in it. And it was some of the worst Friday night I had, awful. So my father kept teaching me, so it'd be a little secret. She never caught us, but I could tell she knew. The secret drove a wedge into an already massive divide between them. I sometimes wonder if she resented me for wanting to know more than she did, or wanting to use that knowledge to get as far away from her as possible. Either way, my father and my source to the outside world died 5 years ago. The secret I keep with him in death is the wall that keeps her up.
Back in the parlor,
Your daughter impressed me with her arithmetic the other evening.
Oh dear.
No, it was charming, really.
Oh, well, to you alone, I guess. The girl has too much of her father in her.
Was she close with the late Mr. Ashton?
Thick as thieves. Filled her head with dreams of knowledge, then put a requirement of marriage and a family on her dowry.
What do you mean?
back on the grounds.
What's one more secret then?
Elijah untucks his shirt and starts to rip off the hem into a long strip. Hildegard is confused and at the sight of his skin blushes. In the parlor.
Well, in order to receive her trust, bountiful as it may be, she does not get a penny until she's properly married with a child. Can you believe it? Smart as that girl is, she has yet to secure a spouse for her future. Intelligence, yes, but smart, no.
Alice stands anxiously and goes to the window. On the grounds.
What are you doing?
No pockets, I presume.
Bucks are a luxury women know not of.
Then here,
Elijah holds out the strip of cloth from his shirt.
use this to secure the book to your undercarriage. Your leg or something to discreetly see at home.
Elijah stands away, attempting to give her privacy. Hildegard takes the strip and attempts to lift her skirts and adhere the book to her leg, to no avail. Back in the parlor.
But perhaps it was all meant to be. The two of them seem to be getting along nicely.
I don't see them.
Back on the grounds.
Oh, you know how young ones can be, gallivanting off, losing track of time.
Well, may I?
Hildegard sits on a low fence and gives him the go-ahead.
Henry Thomas.
In the most decent way you are able, madam, would you raise your hem?
Oh.
I'm sure it's fine, Alice. They're probably behind the stables.
It's quite improper without a chaperone.
Hildegard raises her skirt up to her knees. Elijah delicately ties the book securely to the outside of Hildegard's thigh. He looks up at her. Is it secure? She nods and he rises. And he finds himself between Hildegard's legs, nose to nose. Before he pulls away, Hildegard kisses him. At first, Elijah pulls away. But as he stands there, something happens. His body that he once thought he wanted it to do comes alive and he is shocked by it.
I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have never.
It turns to leave, but Elijah grabs her, pulling her in for a dreamy kiss for the ages, pressing his once lifeless body into hers, aroused for the first time since that fateful night. Both are swept up in the glorious moment. A dinner bell clangs.
I think we should.
Yeah, that would be
Thank you for the
my pleasure.
book and
Something about that. Hildegard, deeply self-conscious and yet girlishly giddy, rushes back toward the house. Elijah takes a moment, recounting the sudden change of events. He grins to himself, warmed by the possibility of hope, and follows after Hildegard. Scene 5, Gableton Manor, the next day. Henry Thomas and Alice enjoy their breakfast in peace. Elijah comes bounding into the room, chipper.
Morning, mother, father. What?
You know, such a strange woman, that Etta Ashdown. If her daughter is anything like her mother, I couldn't imagine spending another
I
afternoon.
should like to see her again. Perhaps this week. Do we have any books on ancient civilizations?
Are we expecting?
I will see him. I know he's here and I'm not leaving until.
Noah barges into the breakfast room.
What in God's name is this?
Elijah,
Noah Cartwright, is this any way to behave?
Elijah bolts from the room, but Noah's quickly on his tail. The chase is on. The two run through the house and out into the fields.
can't run from me forever. Leave me alone. Not until I get answers.
Distracted, Elijah trips, sending him to the ground, knocking the wind out of him. Noah catches up.
You always were the epitome of grace.
The hell with you.
And just as magnanimous.
What do you want, Noah?
Elijah, I was very drunk the other night.
No.
But I remember. When I touched you,
We will not be doing this.
Elijah Gableton, I have stood by you from the age of 5 and watched you conquer the world. You have confided in me every experience a boy could have. That time you stole Miss Paisley's chalk from the schoolhouse, the time you fell off your horse and broke the fence. And your grandfather died and we stole his favorite bottle and had our first drink. And when my own mother died, you came every week to drag me out and distract my wounded heart. You thought I didn't know. I know your whole life you have leaned into what they say about you, a philanderer, debauchee, libertine. But you're more than that. You're more than the part you play in this world for them. You're the best man I know, Elijah. Tell me what happened.
Elijah starts to go. Noah lets him. Elijah makes it a few paces before collapsing with emotion. Noah goes to him. Alice and Henry Thomas watch from the house. They share a worried exchange, the framed portraits weigh heavy upon them. Hildegard checks her surroundings, then lifts the floorboards to her secret cachet. She unties the book carefully, hides it. She keeps the strip of Elijah's shirt. Later, Noah and Elijah sit on a fence, the weight of Elijah's story on them.
So. Hildegard Ashdown. Yeah. And she's the only one since it happened, yes. And you haven't had the mainsail at full mast? Not once until Hildegard Ashdown. You think? Well, surely now that you have, I mean, do you think you could again?
Well, I was hoping to see her again to find out.
No, I mean with someone else. Perhaps Ruby down at the ale house. You did have a delectation towards dark-haired beauties.
Oh, I haven't been.
Then what better time than now? A second round at first.
Noah jumps down and offers his hand. This time Elijah takes it. With much unsaid, they exit. Hildegard, alone in her room, girlishly brushes the strip of Elijah's shirt against her face, then inhales it deeply, tracing the fabric along her lips. Then her energy changes. She runs it down her décolletage, down her bodice, wrapping herself in it, falling back onto her bed. Scene 6. Multiple tavern. Noah and Elijah stroll into a tavern filled with the underbelly of the area. Ruby, a bar wench, greets them. Elijah sheepishly pays back. Zachariah, seated at the back with his particularly unsavory characters, spots the duo. As Noah slips to the bar, Zachariah approaches the unsuspecting Elijah.
Gableton, your father would be appalled to see you at the sight of you here. Mr. Irving, it will be our secret. Man's choice is to be his own, don't you agree?
At the bar,
Ruby darling. It's been a while for him. He just needs.
I know what he means, but I think you've got to be the one to give it to him.
We're gonna take him out round back and keep our pillow talk between us.
So, Elijah, your stint in Europe, was that to acquire new investors for Gableton Incorporated or Gable and Son now?
Oh, no, not,
Well, you are planning on partnering with him soon, so,
well,
well, word around town is he's desperately seeking an extra pair of hands.
I don't,
Oh, come now, Elijah. I know your father likes to play. We have a little rivalry, but I do sincerely care about your family's well-being.
Noah interrupts and motions to Ruby at the door, who gives him a flirty wave.
so sorry, but I've got to,
Quite all right, lad. Man's choices. Anytime you'd like to chat, I'm around.
Elijah and Ruby stumble out.
Mr. Cartwright.
Noah belches in his face.
all right. Good night, Noah.
You sincerely care about his family's well-being.
Zachariah makes his way back to his comrades.
Stay away from Elijah Gableton. Your quarrel with the Gabletons can carry on until God himself returns, but leave Elijah out of it.
Oh, you're what, boy?
One of the tavern women approaches to ease the tension.
Last I checked, this great country of ours boasts a free market, and Henry Thomas Gableton needs no help from me to be devoured by it. His son helps his further demise. It's no fault of
What free markets with your crooks and schemes and
watch it, boy. We all have secrets. Hate to think which ones could topple dynasties.
Zachariah tosses the tavern wench a coin.
Enjoy your whore as much as you can.
Zachariah returns to his table. In the alleyway, Elijah presses himself against Ruby, trying unsuccessfully to arouse himself. In her bedroom, Hildegard sensually touches herself. In the corridor of her home, Etta Ashdown steps on a loose floorboard. She stops. Steps on a loose floorboard. She stops and investigates it. In the alley, Elijah grows more and more frustrated and aggressive. Ruby offers a hand, but he pins it behind her. In the corridor, Etta pulls up the floorboard and pulls out Hildegard's secret cache of books. She picks them all up in fury, marching off to find Hildegard. Hildegard is lost, throws them out towards the door when Etta Ashdown storms in. She screams at the sight, books flying everywhere. Elijah's frustration builds into a rage and he strikes the wall, causing Ruby to flee. Noah comes out to find Elijah humiliated. He tries to comfort him, but Elijah runs off. Scene 7. The Gableton Mansion. Henry Thomas studies a ledger as he and Alice sit together in silence. A timid knock is heard. Alice stiffens. They share a look. The knock sounds again. Henry Thomas gets up and goes to the door just as the third knock is heard. And a timid
Mr. and Mrs. Gableton?
Henry Thomas opens the door. Hildegard is standing there with bruises beginning to form on her face.
I had nowhere else to go.
Shall I prepare some tea? I assume you share your mother's affinity for it.
Yes, that's favorite.
That's good news.
Alice exits. Henry Thomas and Hildegard are left alone. He returns to his ledger. Hildegard wanders about examining all the books. By Henry Thomas's desk, and his ledger catches her eye. She
begins to read over his shoulder. He is annoyed by this, but tries to remain polite and continue his work.
Mr. Gable. The payment Davison books the amount of $133 every 3 months. It's missing this quarter. This one right here in the amount of $309, depending on the company.
Died in Brooksbury. Piedmont is the only steel supplier in the area.
Quite a significant increase in overhead.
Alice returns with a tray of tea and accessories, but Hildegard is still absorbed in the ledger.
I prepared a room. It's quite common for friends to lose track of time when they visit, and it can be dangerous on those old roads after dark.
That's very kind of you. But it doesn't hold that. What I assume is your labor costs with these debts here, particularly in the salary of one Mr. Mitchell.
Mr. Mitchell is my longest employed floor manager. Sure, his salary's high, but he's the best with the men. He keeps the spirits up when the going gets tough. He pushes them hard when we're due for a deadline.
But it's worker morale with almost twice the salary of its other competing positions.
A door opens.
In here, Elijah, we're having tea.
I don't want any.
Oh, do come in.
You heard him, he doesn't want any.
I want him to hear this girl's preposterous idea of getting rid of Harry, and Elijah, she wants me to sack Harry.
Elijah enters, startled to see Hildegard.
Not terminate, just consider the alternatives in terms of profit and loss.
Grace, what happened?
I got caught. There are books involved.
On your way to bed then.
You know, I think I can spare a few minutes.
They're discussing the factory,
Have you considered multiple shifts with less men?
you know, your father's factory, the one that belonged to his father, and he was hoping to pass along to you.
You mean have I considered total suicide?
Just consider it.
No,
I need no perspective.
More intense work,
absolutely
I know
not.
that the subject is a sore one for you.
but more time to rest.
Grown men aren't looking to.
But you seem to have had a long day.
And it could mean 12 men rather than 20. With 2 8-hour shifts having on wages, what they could cross over, and that assemblage requires more hands on deck.
Where did you learn to think this way?
Numbers make sense to me. Patterns more than people. When I look at the world, it always seems so obvious, but no one else ever sees it. When I look at music, the interval makes no sense. Romanticism does not. When someone sits at a table with me, tapping their foot, your movement scribbles fervently on the parchment of my mind. But the reason for their anxiety is just unclear. You will find me so strange. My father saw the world just the same, but no one ever bothered him for it.
No, I suppose they wouldn't. Hildegard, I think you should marry my son.
Father. Yes.
I know, it was your idea, okay? It was your mother's idea, and I didn't really see it until. But it's a strong match. You two seem to get along all right, but truthfully, I was counting on my son to take some interest in family business, and since he hasn't, I've been shorthanded. And Hildegard, you seem to have a knack for numbers, but more importantly, a view of the world that sees things that I miss. I think it would be good for you.
I need the privy.
Hildegard runs from the room.
What did I only wanted. Elijah, surely you can see.
Oh, father, why start involving mean animals?
Elijah exits.
How could you do that without consulting me?
This was your plan, no?
Were you not listening to Edith Ashdown yesterday?
I was most certainly trying not to.
Hildegard has to bear a child in order to receive her inheritance.
There would be a plethora of reasons why she couldn't bear a child.
A matter of time before she realizes her husband is castrated.
You may not figure it out.
When she figures out what happens, when she realizes the Blackwoods were being, she realized the Blackwoods were being robbed by a mere glance at a chandelier.
I think you're wrong. She's intelligent, yes. There's a naivete about her that would overlook certain.
We have no idea what she's capable of overlooking. We have no idea what anyone is capable of. She may not seem interested in more than girlish love now, But with Etta pushing her for proper breeding, if she finds that we misled her, resulting in the loss of her inheritance, they could feel moved to take us to court.
Take us, are you mad?
Yes, I am out of my mind. Every day I am racked with anxiety, the need to move forward, but I cannot. I cannot because I am stuck treading the same turbulent waters of my mind, moving through the same nightmare, watching my son live out a shell of a person he once was before he even got to live. And you keep on like nothing has happened. Like you're this same man that you were. Still the same weak, cowardly man who just stood there and bartered our son's life away.
I did what I thought was right. Did what I thought. I'm sorry. I shouldn't. You're just tired. You know,
He shuffles, looking for a small bottle and brings it to her.
Dr. Milford upped it to twice daily, right?
It makes me groggy. I hate it.
Alice, if we stay the course, things will get better. We must stay the course.
Henry Thomas reaches out to his wife, but Alice leaves. He feels the presence of the framed portraits looming above him. He sets the bottle down on the hallway table. Scene 8, the bedroom to the altar. Hildegard sits alone in the guest room. Outside the door, Elijah paces, reaches to knock, then second guesses himself. He turns and leaves, then boldly approaches again just as Hildegard opens the door.
You're the gate of an elephant.
You have the tongue of a snake.
Would you like to come in?
Please. You don't. Back there, my father said,
To unpropose.
that's not what I'm. Do you want to marry me?
Did your father really mean what he said about working for him?
My father means everything he's ever said about business.
You don't want to take over the factory?
Do I seem like the kind of person that wants to take over a factory?
You seem like the kind of person who, given the right support, could do a lot of things.
You never answered my question.
I never saw myself wanting to marry anyone. When I found out my father stipulated marriage and a child in my inheritance. Elijah, I hate secrets. I don't want to keep secrets. I don't want them kept from me. If we're to consider the possibility.
Hildegard, the secret I keep from you is not because I choose to keep it. It's because I can't speak it out loud or it will rip me apart. The thing so dark within me, it weighs me down so that every river I pass, should I fall in, I would sink to its belly. Every ocean, swallow me whole. And Hildegard, I wanted to. I wanted to. And to even say this much to you is like peering into the abyss, breathlessly hoping not to, but also desperately wanting to fall over the edge and the hot, cruel burn of pulling everything I can down with me. Because I know you know it. I know you've witnessed it. From the rumors that ran through this town when you found your father hanging from the rafters, I know you've looked it in the face enough to understand that when I ask you to let it be, you can let it be. The question is, can you, knowing all this, accept it and choose to stand by me anyway?
Hildegard hugs him. It is innocent and it surprises Elijah. They hold each other for a moment of beautiful intimacy. Outside the house, Noah climbs up to the second floor, but sees Hildegard and Elijah. Their intimacy breaks him. Elijah looks up and sees Noah in the window. He makes a choice, kissing Hildegard for Noah to see. Noah leaves. Elijah feels himself come alive and he takes her passionately. In the hallway, Alice approaches the door of the room with a cup of tea. She reaches to knock, but hears a cry of pleasure and comes to a halt. She carefully leans her ear against the door and steps back, realizing that her plan to keep them apart has failed. And as she turns away, she sees the small bottle of dram on the hallway table. She considers, then slips it in her pocket and exits. As the lovers undress, church bells chime. Henry Thomas, Alice, Noah, Madeline, Etta, Zachariah, and other wedding guests file into a sanctuary, surrounding the couple in a different space and time. Hildegard and Elijah give their lines to each other as the whispered promises of lovers, while the guests see only the couple at an altar during the ceremony.
I take you to be mine.
To have and to hold.
To honor and obey.
In sickness.
And in health.
For better,
Or worse.
for richer. Or poor.
Between the two worlds, Elijah and Noah see each other.
Cherish and to love.
So death parts us.
And in the presence of God and these witnesses,
I
Make this vow.
Noah, overcome with emotion, exits. Alice goes after him. The worlds of the wedding and the lovers fade, and Noah drowns his pain in a bottle of whiskey, oblivious to Alice, who steps out from the darkness, dram in hand.
I have a proposition for you.
Scene 9, the reception at Gableton Manor. The couple is surrounded by a waning wedding reception. Guests drink and dance around them, but they are serene.
Bathing wife?
Yes, husband.
Off with you then.
Already giving me orders?
You heard the man, honor and obey.
Hmm.
Well, go hide from the guests and don't wake them off.
Is there a man better than you?
Yes, the best. But Noah seems to be feeling antisocial. I should go catch him before he gives some scandalous toast or halt whatever atrocious prank he has planned.
The couple parts ways into a crowd of guests. Inside the house,
Hildegard, dear, there you are.
Were you looking for me?
Yes, the women in my family have a wedding night tradition.
Alice hands her a glass of liquid.
Oh, I don't like liquor. It makes me feel fuzzy.
Just a toast for luck, dear.
Hildegard hesitates, but drinks it.
No missing crystals tonight.
Not that I've seen. But there were 56 spoons at the buffet and 25 chairs around the great table. 3 of them have a discolored panel in the back. These things always make me uneasy. It feels like a game, but I don't know any of the rules.
It is a game.
You never seem to be bothered by it.
That's the game. The less you care, the better you do. This helps. I always wondered what it would be like to have a daughter. Pretty curls and ribbons, dolls and tea parties. It's funny how things turned out. I got my pretend world, a pawn in my own game.
Do you ever win?
Oh, darling, nobody wins. Nobody. Hildegard. Being a mother is the worst thing that can happen to you. In a burst forth of violence, of blood and flesh, there's suddenly an extension of yourself that the world can take, torture, destroy without even laying hands upon you. It is the most wonderful, wretched thing. You must do it absolutely. And it will cost you dearly.
Alice hurries her to finish her drink. Hildegard follows.
I think I need to take a moment.
Yeah. Of course, they're preparing the wedding suite. Please rest up and come back to us when you're refreshed.
Alice ushers Hildegard into the room and shuts the door. She takes a moment, then walks in. Zachariah raises a toast to catch Henry Thomas's eye.
Congratulations, Henry Thomas.
Thank you. Right?
Interesting choice.
What do you mean?
The girl, of all the girls that Elijah consorted with, all the ones with money, he chose the odd stuff in the pond.
Not everything has to be a financial maneuver, Zachariah.
Nothing seems to be a financial mover for you as of late, Henry Thomas.
I see that you're enjoying my wine, and I will leave you to continue.
I always thought it was curious why we play these games, invites to parties, showing off for each other like we're friends. Like we care. We pretend like we're not sizing each other up.
You have been invited under no such pretense, Zachariah.
Father, he's my best man.
Ah, here he is, the man of the hour, the next in line for the dynasty.
Mr. Irving, see you. Thought you could barely fill your father's shoes, Gableton, but this boy couldn't handle his own laces. Excuse me.
Zachariah, I would remind you that you are a guest at my son's wedding.
What turn of events it is. The boy who couldn't keep out of every girl in town is suddenly an honest man. Tell me, Elijah, did you pick a degenerate for a wife in hopes that she'll keep you on the straight and
That
narrow?
is quite enough, Zachariah.
Or what? You'll stop me? I'm surprised you could keep the bill collectors from knocking down your door during the ceremony. Boy, does it now? Of course not. Why wouldn't he? Well, boy, the Gableton and Company is dangling by mere threads. By the looks of it, Henry Thomas is using Hildegard Ashdown's dowry to funnel cash flow into its lifeless corpse.
Zachariah exits triumphantly. Elijah looks at Henry Thomas, but he cannot look at his son and exits. Hildegard stumbles into the study. Her body starts to sway and she reaches out for something to support her. Out of the darkness, Noah steps out to catch her. Hildegard is surprised to meet him, but lets him carry her to the chase. Alice, in a different time and space.
You must know, this is for Elijah. He needs an heir. It's for the good of them both.
Oh, Jesus.
No.
It's not right.
Since when have you cared about what's right, Noah? All the girl people acquired like territories, and now you're concerned with what's right? What's right is what's best for Elijah. And I know you love my son. I know you love my son.
I can't do it.
Do not make this more difficult than it needs to be. You don't think the rumors are not so far reaching? Imagine the shame your mother would have if I had to quietly confirm what they all feared. Imagine the fall from grace your family would.
Stop it.
All you have to do is this small favor, this gift, and it would tie you to him forever. You would be bound to Elijah forever.
Noah looks at Hildegard, who is now practically unconscious. Alice fades away. Noah puts his hand on Hildegard's leg, trying to begin. He is several times so overcome with emotion, he has to stop. Hildegard goes in and out of consciousness. As Noah begins to take her, she struggles to push him away. The more she fights, the more upset Noah becomes. Elijah comes into the house searching and finds Alice standing guard outside the door.
Mother, you haven't seen Noah, have you? I know he's up to something mischievous.
Oh, darling, I believe he was out on the grounds getting drunk with your friends.
I just came from there. There's no one to be.
In the study, Hildegard hears Elijah and incoherently calls out. Noah covers her mouth.
Who's that?
Oh, yes, I think it may be Madeline in the privy, poor girl, cried the whole ceremony. The sounds of all the hearts breaking across the country is deafening.
No, that's not.
In the study, Hildegard struggles against Noah and bites his hand badly, causing Noah to scream in pain.
Leave it, Elijah.
The door, Mother.
Now enraged from pain and failure, Noah lunges at Hildegard violently.
I thank you, Elijah, for your
Into
sake.
the door.
Elijah pushes her aside and proceeds to shove against it. After several attempts, he bursts through, discovering Noah on top of Hildegard. Elijah goes into shock, his past trauma triggered. Noah reaches for him, but Elijah flinches and turns away.
Say something.
Noah manages to grab Elijah and blood smears his skin. Elijah drops to the floor, trying to escape his touch.
Elijah, do something. Anything. Hurt me.
Elijah begins to disassociate.
Hit me. Elijah, hit me.
Alice, darling, they're asking about the cake.
Henry Thomas enters. Alice stands back as Noah pursues Elijah, who has fully frozen in trauma. Hildegard struggles, drugged, skirts disheveled. He puts the pieces together. Henry Thomas lunges at Noah.
No,
You. Tell me you're not behind this.
I did what I thought was best.
She exits. Henry Thomas releases the whimpering Noah.
Elijah,
Elijah covers his ears to shut him out. Noah leaves, devastated. Henry Thomas surveys the carnage, crippled by his own helplessness. The portraits of the Gableton family descend along with the candles, though they burn far less brightly now, and one by one start to go out.
God have mercy on all of us.
Henry Thomas exits. Hildegard finds her way to Elijah, but as she reaches out, her hand pulls away, unable to allow physical touch. Shattered, begins to weep. Elijah rallies, looking around for something to offer her. He spots a book on the floor nearby, upset during the scuffle. He opens it and begins to read. Elijah cannot go on. Hildegard rallies, reaching for the book and takes over for him.
Unique for its social system. Spartan society emphasizes military advancement. Undergoing rigorous physical regimes in order to fulfill their duties.
Elijah calms as Hildegard reads, the tips of their fingers inches apart, as close as the two can muster. End Act 1.
immediately now.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Act 2. Scene 1, Gableton Manor, a flashback. The year is 1899. 15-year-old Elijah climbs into his room from the window, dreamy and smiling. He does not see a surly Henry Thomas waiting for him. They both stare at each other for a moment, Elijah's face falling.
Father,
I am not a hardened man, Elijah.
It was just,
The way my father was.
I didn't want to wait.
I once spoke out in front of my father, and my grandfather. You know how children can be. It's probably something innocent. I didn't understand the look that passed between them, but the prickling in the air told me I soon would. The next day, my father came to my room and told me to come with him. Of course, I followed. Lamb to the slaughter. Out of the house, onto the grounds, past the fences, into the woods along the North Creek. I followed. My child mind was certain that he was going to kill me. We traced the edge of the woods until we came upon a trap. At the time we kept chickens. We were having problems keeping beasts out of the coops. This trap had successfully yielded one large red fox, hissing at us as we approached. My father stopped at the cage and stared down at it for a moment. Then he held out his pistol to me. Still feel a lurch of fear in my chest when I realized what we'd come there to do. The fox was beautiful. Magnificent, really. Every crash against the cage told me it wanted to live. At my hesitation, my father placed the pistol into my hand. Cold metal jolting my heart into my throat. Howling in my ears, muffling his instructions. The hiss of the fox. Tremble of my teeth. I could not steady. Not catching my breath. And even though his mouth moved, I could not hear any of the words until he shouted fire. And I closed my eyes and I pulled the trigger. The world stopped. For a moment, I thought I'd rendered myself deaf. Until the agonizing screams of the fox filled my ears. In my panic, I had aimed poorly, and the bullet had ripped through his entrails. I shook in horror, looking to my father for instruction. But his eyes, they were blank, decidedly distant. I had to choose. Without him, I had to decide what to do. Pointed the revolver at the fox again, still jerking like I could flee if it had the chance. And I pulled the trigger again. Eyes open this time. Warmth splattered my face. And this time the silence held true. Choked sobs began to erupt out of me, desperate to escape my small body. But my father knelt down and looked at me with those faraway eyes and said, "No." With every catch in my throat, a no to ease it back down. So it was just two empty vessels looking at each other. Today, you have learned what it costs to be a man. And he left me with the carcass. He never knew, but I buried that fox. And I was right that day to think that my father was going to kill me. I buried some part of me with the fox too. I am not a hardened man, Elijah. And even less a father if I continue to pay the ransom for you to stay a boy.
Henry Thomas reaches into his pocket and pulls a silver pocket watch and holds it out to Elijah.
Found this by your bed.
Elijah reaches out nervously for it, but as he takes it, Henry Thomas holds on to it for a beat.
Noah must have left it.
An intense moment of realization. Henry Thomas then releases his grasp on the watch and exits. Elijah is left alone, the portraits of his family looming above. Scene 2, Elijah and Hildegard's home, present day. The year is 1904. Elijah holding the pocket watch, reliving the memory. In a separate space, Hildegard waits in a doctor examination room. Though she is physically at the doctor, she is mentally reliving a fight with Elijah and plays a conversation out to the audience.
Wife,
Husband,
Younger doctor and older doctor enter. Younger doctor refers to a clipboard.
Mrs. Elijah Gableton, please call me approximately 5 feet 8 inches,
father give you off today?
no, I'll go in this afternoon.
143 pounds and 29 years of
Works
age.
you too hard.
Elijah.
I know, I need to rise.
And no previous pregnancies at all?
None.
Good God, and married how long?
It will be
3 years and 5 months.
I tried, Hildegard. Really tried today.
Elijah,
3 years is a long time without conception.
we're past due on mortgage
If it's a little late, we should be fine.
by 4 months.
Let's see what we're working with.
The doctors lay Hildegard back, placing her legs in the stirrups.
What
It
if,
happens so quickly she can barely react.
what if we asked father for,
Impossible. I balance his books. I'll be letting blood from stone.
how much do we have left on the house?
Perhaps 10, 15,000.
The older doctor examines her, speaking to the younger doctor. The younger doctor scribbles notes.
Well, everything looks to be healthy.
In our savings?
What savings?
We could sell that silver set we never used.
No aesthetic abnormalities
The
and.
wedding present from,
The doctor reaches in without warning. She gasps.
Sold last year before Christmas.
Yes, the cervix is surprisingly without defect.
well, my father set aside an allotment of shares in Gable Incorporated as my inheritance when I became of age. What if I sold those?
The
back
company
to
is on the
him?
brink of bankruptcy. Who would buy them?
Does copulation occur regularly?
We need my inheritance. If I say secure the money my father left me,
Your husband, is he expressing pleasure at the time of ejaculation?
Secure? You mean have
yes,
Slight tenderness when stretching the vaginal canal could be low pain tolerance.
Hildegard, you can't even say it.
You'll have to work on that if you conceive. Physically, everything seems to be in order.
Older doctor pulls his hand out.
Is that having a child even what you want?
So really, the only explanation could be the environment you're creating.
what do you mean?
In her chart, it says she and Mr. Gableton have recently moved into the city to be closer to the family business. Oh, Gableton. Gableton.
Oh, of Gableton Incorporated.
What else am I supposed to want? What else is expected of me?
That kind of change can be an intense stressor.
I've never expected anything of you, Hildegard.
No, you haven't, nor have you for yourself, Elijah, and look where that's gotten us.
Has your husband hired you some help when he's at work?
So you are listening to what they're saying about me.
I don't care what they
The
say.
invalid Gableton boy, coddled and supported by his own wife.
Alice enters in a different space and time, gently cooing at a swaddled infant in her arms.
Actually, you're only employed one at the factory.
I never asked you to do that.
Miss Gableton.
Please, it's.
Hildegard.
Oh, God. Had you told me from the beginning, I wouldn't have needed to even continue with the examination.
Being a mother is the worst thing that could happen to you.
You cannot expect to conceive a child under such circumstances.
In a burst forth of violence, of blood and flesh.
Men have provided for women because the delicacies of nature require it.
Send me an extension of yourself.
It is a badge you should wear with
That
honor.
the world can take, torture, destroy without even laying hands upon you.
And to deprive a child of a safe place to begin its first precious moments on this earth.
It is the most wonderful, wretched thing.
Yes, we indeed have to discover
You
the
must
source
do
of
it,
our troubles, my
absolutely.
dear.
It rests upon your shoulders to write them.
And it will cost
The doctors exit, leaving Hildegard sitting alone, defeated. Alice begins to strangle the swaddled baby, working herself up into hysteria. Henry Thomas enters and wrests the bundle away from her, and it unravels into an empty blanket. He soothes her as she weeps, speaking his words to her.
I don't know how much longer I can sustain carrying this boat.
Must I continue to pay the ransom for you to remain a boy?
I never asked you to do that.
Didn't you? A vow for better, for worse, in sickness and in health?
This isn't the life I wanted to give.
We're running out of options, Elijah.
This isn't the life I wanted even for myself.
Amidst the agonizing screams, I had to choose. Without him, I had to decide.
Hildegard, I am going to make everything right. Don't ask me how, just know that I am.
No, he said as I wept.
Is that little alehouse still on the corner of Sumter, the one that has the piano you can hear from the street?
No.
Yes.
After you close tonight, meet me there. We're going to celebrate a toast.
Today you will learn
Celebrate what?
what it costs to be a man,
Changing tides.
bathed in warmth, ransomed in blood.
Are the tides changing, husband?
Yes, wife, I promise.
He kisses her. For a moment, she can see Elijah's old sparkle. She smiles, giving in to that dangerous temptation. She leaves.
I buried that box.
Elijah watches her from the window. When he's sure she's out of sight, he dresses quickly.
Buried it myself.
He opens the front door, takes several deep breaths to settle himself, and steps out. Scene 3, Gableton factory offices. Hildegard enters as Henry Thomas berates a businessman.
How dare you come in here unsolicited?
I mean no disrespect, sir, but the automobile is putting the stagecoach lights to rest.
Bad.
I'm offering you the opportunity to get out while you still can with a little dignity.
Out.
I think it's time for you to.
Get out.
You are impossible, Henry Thomas.
We thank you for your
No, we do not.
Henry Thomas slams the door behind them.
productive morning, I see. Do you know Viola Everhard?
Henry Thomas shakes his head. She holds out a letter.
An inquiry
Out.
for a meeting, but possibly.
Audacity, these scavengers have a little financial trouble and the whole world swoops in ready to pick at him before he's dead.
This is not a little trouble when you know it.
Ups and downs of the nature of the free market.
Hildegard sets a ledger in front of him and points.
These are the ups. Show me. I only see downs.
All right, Hildegard.
Those men, while in foul nature, are not the real enemy here. They're right. Times are changing. If we don't make some adjustment, we cannot come back from this.
Where were you this morning?
Late.
You're never late.
I went to the doctor.
You ill?
Not exactly.
Come back to Gableton Manor.
Impossible.
Alice misses you all terribly. Well, she misses something terribly. The city is eliciting some change in life.
It has a period of adjustment.
Different walls will not change a man.
I'm grateful for your kindness. I go back and I'm just like Alice. The doctor says I'm in a critical environment. Which is why we can't conceive.
There are many reasons.
I think my time here is coming to an end.
No, I can work with you.
I'm not sure you can, and I have to think of the future.
Gableton Incorporated will get through this rough patch and we will do it together. I cannot do it without you. I promise to be flexible, promise.
Hildegard looks skeptical, but nods. She exits. Henry Thomas is left alone. Scene 4, a restaurant. In the secluded area of a fine restaurant reserved for those who require a quiet place for matters to be discussed, Elijah bursts in, eyes darting and clearly anxious. He spots Zachariah and beeline spirit.
Elijah Gableton in the flesh. You've been locked away. You've been locked away for so long. It's been rumored you're dead. May I? I need money. I'm not a bank. You are a man with resources. None that can help you. I promise I will find a way to pay you. You have nothing left that I want, Elijah. What does that mean? It means that you were a spoiled, unemployable schoolboy. You never grew up. You have nothing to offer me except your pathetic, useless word. You see, alone, Elijah, you have to put up some kind of collateral. Yeah, and you don't know that. My business to know that. I have shares. I could sign my shares in the company over to you as collateral.
Across the room, Noah enters. He freezes upon seeing Elijah.
This is what you want, right? All those years working for him, taking his orders. You can finally put him in his place. But perhaps you've softened these last few years. I do have an old school friend at the bank who might lend me.
All right, you have my attention, Elijah, but I don't want them as collateral. I want the shares. Irony. That is my only offer.
Noah starts to approach.
Fine.
I'll stop by tomorrow with the papers. Where are you hiding these days?
15 Wellesley Avenue.
It's a gentleman's agreement.
I'll keep that in mind, should I?
Elijah exits, past Noah without a word. Noah studies Zachariah for a moment, who returns a sneer. Noah chases after Elijah. Scene 5, the alehouse. Ragtime plays, Hildegard stands alone, waiting among the bustling afterward crowd. Winnie, the gregarious owner of this establishment, tends to patrons. Lizzie, a flirtatious woman in breeches, stares at her, practically salivating. Viola Urban Parks enters, and Winnie Lizzie excitedly to her, obviously having not seen her in some time.
Well, it isn't the queen gracing us with her presence.
Hildegard watches the familiarity of the group unfold with curiosity.
I've come to show patronage to the finest establishment and all around.
That is no good here, and you know it.
Winnie tends to Viola. Lizzie catches Hildegard watching, who turns away shyly. Lizzie makes her way over to her.
Enchanting, isn't she?
Oh,
Apologies. My name is,
Lizzie, can't leave you alone for a moment. Sorry, it's shouldn't bother. I'm Winnie.
don't listen to her. Winnie, it's all in vain. Our new friend, Hildegard, beautiful. Seems to only have eyes for Viola.
Our new friend has good taste.
no, I'm not. I'm here waiting for my husband.
Of course, dear, aren't we all?
Not me, I fly solo at these things here for now.
Stop embarrassing the girl. She's obviously spoken for and most certainly not interested in you or the vulture.
Vulture?
The vulture.
Viola, the vulture of the business district.
She married that German investor, Herman Eberhard.
Scandalous affair.
That's ones are.
He met her when she used to work here, caring for my evening patrons, then married her.
Blew the heads off proper society.
The German recognized her talents.
both inside and outside the bedroom.
Her knack for spotting business on her last legs had made him a fortune. So now he can stay out of her way
Following her around like a puppy, holding her handbag.
while she selects which businesses to sell off her scraps.
The death knell of the business district.
Hence why they call her
The vulture.
Viola, darling. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our new friend, Hildegard.
Gableton.
Gableton. Oh, of Gableton Incorporated.
Yes. Wait, Viola Eberhard? Your letter of inquiry.
Yes, I requested a meeting with Mr. Gableton to introduce myself. Nice to know that now we have a mutual friend. Hildegard, I know these two from a weekly salon I host every Saturday. You should join us tomorrow.
Ooh, a lovely idea.
Oh, that's kind of you, but
No buts.
Lizzie.
Just the dry cusps of society who like to laugh and drink and talk about the world. I think you'd fit right in.
well, it does sound.
2:00, 57 Essex. See you then.
Viola takes her hand and gives it a squeeze, then disappears into the noisy crowd. On the street, Noah catches up to Elijah.
Elijah. Elijah, please wait. You look well? No, I don't. No, you don't. You look like shit.
Well, you look like your father.
That's true. You swore you'd never say that.
No, I swear I'd tell you if you did.
Right. Good man. What business do you have with Zachariah Irving?
Don't know what.
Don't go making deals with the devil.
You dare speak to me of devils. I know the devil. He has a sunny disposition and a silver tongue.
Oh, is that what you spout at the brute in the mirror?
The devil stands beside you until he gets a better offer. The devil.
You dare speak to me about better offers? When you were so quick to abandon me for Hildegard.
Abandonment. Was it in the name of abandonment that you laid hands on my wife?
What angers you more, Elijah? That my hands were on her, or that they weren't on you?
Elijah violently grabs Noah. The two men freeze, mouths a mere breath away, waiting for the other to make a move.
Noah,
Noah breaks away, recovering before Madeline enters.
so sorry, the ladies kept me. Oh, Elijah.
Yes, darling, I bumped into our old friend coming out of the restaurant. I'm sure you heard, but allow me to introduce Miss Madeline Cartwright, my wife.
Married?
Yes, right after Noah started law school.
Couldn't wait on you forever.
Well, it's nice to see you, Elijah. Give my love to Hildy. Coming, dear?
Of course, my darling.
Madeline leaves. Noah tries to think of something to say to Elijah, but comes up empty. He leaves. Elijah is left alone. Viola reprises the chorus of the songs as Hildegard bids farewell to Winnie and Lizzie and makes her way home. She finds Elijah in bed where she left him as asleep and clutching the pocket watch. Disappointed, she gently sets the pocket watch on the bedside table, covers him, but does not join him in bed. When Elijah hears her leave, he opens her eyes and takes the watch and holds it close. Scene 6, Viola's salon. An ornate salon in which Viola, Gertrude, Missy, Winnie, and Gustav drunkenly banter. Hildegard listens.
I'm not saying I agree with them, I'm only saying that where I come from, it could be considered a kind of deceit.
You frightened little Wiener Schnitzel.
Did you think of German culture permeated your entire existence?
It's not the only rigidity that
permeates
If you
and-
hide anything about yourself, you're a deceiver, no?
So now I'm a deceiver?
Oh, you've been called worse.
Not by me, you're putting words in my mouth.
When already it's so full of my.
Let the man speak for Christ's sake. We're here to be enlightened, are we not?
Thank you, Viola. I only meant certain people believe that anyone dressing differently from what they were before
And anything indicating otherwise is a lie.
So I'm the lie. My existence is a lie.
Just to some people.
Certain people, some people. Some people speak in generalities to dance around what they're really too afraid to say.
Winnie, I'm on your side. You know I'm on your side.
If you're promoting their argument, you're so far over line, you can't even see the side. Now look at me, Lizzie. I am flesh and bone. Right? I am more real than some people who walk their meaningless lives, pretending they're happy, pretending that they know how to love. But do they have the sweet juices of life drip from their chins? Do they know what it's like to claw their way through the ends of hell? To not know who and what they are?
Well, come now. We don't know. Perhaps they have.
Trudy Cabby,
We don't know what kind of lives they lead beneath these proper bonnets and cravats. And we don't get to name someone else's hell.
well, why not? When they seem to freely judge us and cast us in it.
Agreed. Am I a swindler simply for the trousers I wear?
Oh, surely there are more to women than our skirts.
And more to a man than the skirts he chases.
What to hear from the new one? Yes, you, darling. Don't worry, I don't bite.
Lizzie.
I want your honest opinion on the subject. Gustav here has challenged me.
I have no such thing.
Challenged me to a philosophical duel, and I need reason. I saw you the other night. You handled Lizzie quite well. I think it's time we threw you into the lions.
I'm afraid I can't offer much on the subject.
Be afraid. Whatever you say, it will be heard out. Even if it does get you thrown over the banister.
She's kidding.
Is she?
Well, I hate deception. I believe the truth, the clearest truth, is often most obvious. Pick up facts and force them like a jigsaw pieces into incomparable pieces and puzzle parts diverse from our larger truth. Takes us further from ourselves.
And what of those truths which are dictated to us?
In which way?
You cannot tell me you have lived as a woman and not been told to just accept the world as it is.
Yeah, leave the thinking to the menfolk.
Well, yes, I've spent most of my life convincing my family to let me remain unwed.
And so you accepted it as a fact for a time because it was thrust upon you.
Ladies are meant to be male companions.
I feel I was quite wrong. Companionship with my husband has been quite rewarding.
In the separate space of Elijah and Hildegard's home, Elijah paces anxiously, clicking the pocket watch.
Yes, that companionship is tricky. My point is, my new friend Hildegard, is what really is the truth? What the world dictates to you, or what you deem it to be?
I do not know what it means to be a man. Only it means to want to be a man, or rather to have the ability to live independently, the life I want. I can imagine then if I felt a desire more so to actually wish to be a man. To the point that I only felt fully myself in masculine skin. Living that lie, but I suppose it isn't a lie anymore. Maybe the truth is more than the lie.
What do you say, Winnie? Will she live to see another salon?
Well, for now, she lives. Gustav, on the other hand.
I was only playing the devil's advocate.
Dear.
Take the devil to the banister.
Get behind me, Satan.
Lizzie and Gert chase Gustav off. Viola pulls Hildegard aside.
Let's to the bar. I need a drink.
In a separate space, Zachariah secures a contract into a leather-bound satchel. Back in Elijah and Hildegard's home, Elijah paces, clicking the pocket watch. The doorbell rings and he jumps, setting the watch on a nearby table and shuffles to the door. Noah stands there. He bursts in before Elijah can protest.
See, there's this tendency in you, this habit you've had since we were boys. And now that I'm grown, this awful habit of withholding.
I cannot do this right now, Noah. I am expecting.
You do this when someone finally opens up to you, when they lay themselves bare. You see with your own eyes their need for you, for something which you and only you possess. You just stop cold. You refuse to give what others, you refuse to give what would cost you nothing, what would make you happy even. You gatekeeper of sticks, you refuse all those who not only wish passage, but would happily pay the fare twice over.
Not withhold what you dream up in your head.
Damn you. It was not a dream. It is not a dream. I did not dream of your skin on my skin. Softness of your hair in my hands. Tips of your fingers.
Noah attempts to touch him, but Elijah catches his reach, keeping him at arm's length. As he does, Noah stumbles back into the nearby table. Elijah steadies and then releases him as Noah grapples at the table to steady himself, and his hand finds the pocket watch.
Did you ever take into consideration the choice of the gatekeeper, Noah? What it would cost me? What it would cost everyone to give you what you want?
This is mine.
Well, it's not.
Elijah, this is my watch. The one I thought I lost when we were.
Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. There really isn't.
Why do you have this?
Elijah makes a sudden reach for the watch, but Noah snaps it away. A flicker of a smile curls onto Noah's face as he dangles the watch out, taunting Elijah, who resists momentarily, then lunges for it again. Elijah grows from the irritated to playful as their game crescendos, and as Elijah makes for the watch one more time, Noah intercepts Elijah, kissing him deeply. Elijah does not resist, and then kisses him deeper. Back in the salon at the bar, Viola pulls herself a drink.
Something about the male form fascinates me.
She watches Hildegard study the larger-than-life pieces of art that surround them. Hildegard is taken aback as she realizes that they are all of the nude male form.
I call this nook my ode to man. Are you familiar with Dr. Freud? My husband is obsessed with him. His recent articles refers to my fascination as penis envy, where a female child realizes they lack a penis and feel, in a sense, castrated.
Viola joins Hildegard in really studying the art.
But it goes much deeper than that.
Viola directs Hildegard closer to a collection of sketches. Perhaps they look out as projections appear for the audience to see what they see. Back in Elijah and Hildegard's home, Noah and Elijah kiss each other deeply. They begin to undress.
Da Vinci's The Vitruvian Man depict the ideal proportions of the male form. And this one is his section of a man and woman in coitus, drawn almost 400 years ago. It wasn't until later in 1508, after much research and dissections, that he came close quite to what we know to be the modern anatomy of a man. This one here.
She brings Hildegard right in front of a large print of Da Vinci's drawing of the male genital anatomy. Hildegard looks up at it, perplexed. Zachariah approaches the front door with a satchel of contracts in hand and knocks curtly. On the other side, Noah and Elijah freeze.
Can you believe for centuries the medical community thought we women were just incubators? The Greeks thought that sperm was excretion from the male brain. It has only been determined in the last 20 years or so just how vital women are in the reproductive process.
Outside the door of Elijah and Hildegard's home, Zachariah knocks again, juxtaposing Elijah between his deal with Zachariah and his passion for Noah. Zachariah's exasperation of being stood up grows more and more with every knock. Hildegard cannot quite process what she is seeing.
This is supposed to be a general man.
A whole history of men have been blaming women for infertility, when all the while we hold just one egg at a time. That must be fertilized by the thousands of sperm created in the genitalia. All that responsibility conveniently avoided until now.
Back at home, Elijah chooses Noah. Zachariah storms away enraged. Back in the salon, Hildegard begins to panic.
This isn't a sick man or with deformities. Every man should have balls.
Lizzie, Gustav, Winnie, and Gertrude join them.
Please don't talk to me about your husband's perfect crown jewels, or I swear I'll jump off the banister myself.
Hildegard looks from Lizzie, Winnie, and Viola to the sketches surrounding her and begins to sway.
Harry, what's the matter?
Hildegard vomits into a nearby urn.
I must leave now.
Hildegard, try to stay
I
calm.
cannot be here any longer.
Hildegard runs from the room.
I'm always a little much for that.
The salon fades away as Hildegard struggles home. In a dreamy space, Elijah and Noah make love, savoring each other after a lifetime of fighting it. Hildegard stumbles into the house. She sees an unfamiliar article of clothing. As she picks it up, she sees another and follows the trail to the bedroom. She catches Elijah and Noah in the act. She leaves the room. Elijah goes after her.
Him. Of all the cruel ways you're gonna hurt, let me find you him.
Elijah breaks and Hildegard reaches out for him. As he does, she throws open his robe
No.
to see him for herself.
Do not cover yourself. Show me. It's true then. All this time you've been. Let me think that it was my fault. We couldn't.
Noah stumbles out of the bedroom, still dressing.
Oh God, he knows. Who else knows? I'm the one who. Oh my God. Let him.
I didn't want to.
Did you?
She made me.
Your mother.
That's the game.
Oh my God, I have the pawn.
The less you care, the better you do.
No, not even a pawn. I don't even know what this game is or what the pieces can do. I'm a child, thoughtless, moving trinkets on squares based on what giggling adults whisper in my ear.
No one is laughing, Hildegard.
Get out. Get out! Get out of here! Get out!
Hildegard chases Noah from the house, enraged. Elijah feels the panic rising. Zachariah, Henry Thomas, Alice, Nathaniel, Daisy with babe in arms, Noah and Etta all appear in an ethereal space. Hildegard and Elijah do not see or hear them directly, though, or affected by their words.
All the wealthy maids, Elijah, who pick their oddest stuff in a home.
No one is looking at me as I should be. I'm stupid.
You stupid girl, you're gonna ruin this. You're gonna let it slip through your fingers.
I knew this had to be some ridiculous place. I mean, how could the golden child of the Gabletons possibly want me? There had to be a reason.
I did what I thought was right.
But I let myself believe, I let myself play the fool, and now all they bear is the only girl who could be tricked into its ruse.
Did not want to do this. Misunderstand.
Please, boy, please.
But you did. You hid yourself quite literally. You knew I wouldn't catch on until it was too late for me, until it was a wife to hide behind.
This boy doesn't seem like he can handle even his own laces.
Now with no chance of a child or a dowry to escape this permanent hell I've been dragged into.
I didn't ask you to.
You will not speak, boy.
How can you stand there and say that to me?
I tried to. I told you I couldn't.
You have ripped me apart.
I did what I thought was right.
You dare spit love in my face? My whole life, everyone made me feel like I didn't belong. You knew that. You used that. You let me think the world was fond me wanting. But the truth is, I'm not the freak here. The only one found waiting is you.
She means to wound him, and she succeeds. Elijah is defeated. Hildegard holds fast to her anger, refusing to help him. He stumbles away from her, out of the house. Reality fades away as he spirals. In the ethereal space, Alice hums a lullaby, over the swaddled bundle in Daisy's arms. They both begin to unravel the bundle, and it unfolds into a long noose. They pass it from person to person, making its way to Elijah.
Cannot continue to pay the ransom, Elijah, for you to remain a boy.
An employable school that never had to do well.
We don't need further.
Fire, he shouted.
An eye for an eye, Gableton. Your son will reconcile his debts.
Fire.
I've made my peace with God.
Such a pathetic word.
You refuse those who would pay the fare twice over.
Today, learn what it costs to be a man.
Hildegard joins them in the ethereal space.
The only one found wanting is you.
Hildegard holds out the news to Elijah and he takes it. A coffin appears on stage. As Elijah delivers his monologue, he climbs upon it and secures the noose as the characters in the ethereal space watch him.
World is a complicated place. I'm sorry, I never got this way yet. Never thought that I'd be great. I wasn't ever a great thing. My whole life was dripping in greatness. The only thing it seemed unable to permeate was me. Trophies of the world seemed to stop me cold, and they only gave pause to others. I never understood how people could do things and never think twice about them. The things that happen because of me. They plague me every day. I guess I never would be a man and myself and the things. I wish more than anything that you find your own about a place in the big symphony of this world. In another life, I think we put together. Perhaps maybe I'll see you there.
Quick as the horses. Quicker.
Blackout. Meeting 7. The funeral and fallout. Hildegard, Henry Thomas, Alice, and Noah are dressed for a funeral. In a separate space, Zachariah stares at his brown satchel with the unsigned contract. He thumbs the pages considering. He picks up a pen.
Gableton.
The contract board smiles to himself and exits. At the church, a dirge plays. Hildegard, Henry Thomas, and Alice sit in pews of a church, looking on at the coffin. Henry Thomas starts to rise and leave, but Alice remains seated, staring at the coffin.
Oh, you go. Oh, that's not Elijah.
Henry Thomas looks to Hildegard for help, but she just sits, almost catatonic. He concedes and sits next to Alice.
It was many years ago. I remember my mother most of all. How excited she was. Almost like it was partly hers. She kept exclaiming, "Oh, he's so strong, Alice, a beast of a man. What a fortress he'll provide for your delicate nature." And she was right. You always have had such a strength, such command of a room.
Alice, please.
So you can imagine my confusion when that fortress was so easily violated by a nothing person. Every day I wondered how you lost command of that room.
Son we had, Alice. Such nerve. I envied it. Do you not remember his sheer arrogance? The audacity. He was a man. He was supposed to be. I tried. He wished to remain a boy. Everything I could possibly do. That night, I don't know. The knife was at his throat. Nathaniel was seething like the devil. My God, Daisy shaking with a pistol. I thought if I tried to take him, And then I kept thinking about Elijah, how he had tangled us all into that moment. And even though my head kept telling me to stop it, maybe I thought that if I let this happen, this would be the thing that finally taught him a lesson. always considered myself a decent man. A man who tried to do better than his father and his father before him, but those thoughts I've kept in the depths for so long. Did I hate my son? Did I hate the parts of myself that I've had to harness that I saw flying free within him?
Alice cannot bear to listen and blocks him out. Hildegard, though silent, is filled with the agony of it all. She stands to leave, but her way is blocked by the entrance of Zachariah, who swaggers in with his satchel.
My condolences, Gabletons, for your loss. The various done in the business all in the same week. More than most men can bear.
Thank you.
But not you, Henry Thomas, a captain, stone-faced, the mast of a helm-sinking ship. You will sacrifice even the blood of your firstborn to save it all.
Not today, Zachariah.
Your heir is dead. There are thousands in debt. Carriages on their way out. Thank God I'm finally in a position to do something about it. Elijah came with me a few days ago, needing some money. He sold me his shares. His shares to Gableton Incorporated. They're mine now. He signed it the day he died.
This doesn't look like Elijah's signature.
Wouldn't.
But he did. Included is my offer. Maybe meager, but it's the most you'll get for this business while you run it into the ground.
But this isn't.
He would know not to get involved with scum like you.
How must irk you to see someone who used to sling shit in your stables towering now over you? Nathaniel felt similarly. You remember Nathaniel, don't you? Elijah certainly did. Nathaniel also resented me for rising above my station. But the price I offered him, who couldn't afford his principles. Honestly, I thought you would have Elijah marry the girl. Surely, social damnation is better than castrating your own child. But when he brought proof back.
Zachariah takes out a jar and places it on the coffin.
The stuff of legend's really worth every penny. Sign the papers, Gableton.
He takes one last look at the jar and its effects, then exits. Hildegard churns in thought as Alice unravels. Henry Thomas' rage boils into a guttural scream, but is drowned out by church bells. Scene 8, on the steps with Viola. Hildegard trudges through the quiet streets, lost in thought. As she approaches her house, Viola appears.
I'm very sorry for your loss. Did you know? Hildegard, did you know too? Everyone seems to be in on the joke. Of course, no the enemy.
Hildegard,
There are no more scraps left for you today, Vulture.
I wanted to hate you. The moment I learned of your existence, I set my heart on relishing in your demise. Your fall from your quiet throne? I practiced regaling the tale to myself before I'd fall asleep at night. Recently on my feather down, but also in my more difficult lives, on my cot at Winnie's boarding house, I dreamily whispered to myself after the day of many men, but even before that, on my straw pallet in the kitchen by the fire, between angry tears and snot, I grit the words through choked sobs.
I've had enough stories to last all my life.
Oh, me as well. All those flourishing fairy tales, I'm just so sick of them. You see, no one wants a Cinderella. Not really. No, they love her in theory, but when they meet her in the streets, they cross to the other side. The Cinderella has no bootstraps on those slippers, and no one wants to play the godmother.
Get off my door.
I know you have no reason to trust me, Hildegard. You actually shouldn't, as up until recently, I planned to take you and your empire down, but if you could just listen to me.
How could you even ask me that?
Your mother lied about your dowry. I paid a man at the bank to give me the details of your mother's estate. She used it up ages ago.
Hildegard sits on the stoop.
Hildegard, I know what it's like to feel like the sky is falling, that up is down, that nothing will ever feel right. You have every reason not to trust anyone ever again. And you could survive. You could close the door in my face and scrape by on your own, as difficult as it would be. You would do it. It's time to. A little help from a godmother goes a long way.
Scene 9, Gableton Manor. The portraits descend all around Henry Thomas. Noah chatters wildly in pantomime, but Henry Thomas is so lost in thought, he doesn't register Noah.
As soon as I saw Zechariah leave the church, I knew he must have done something. Was it about Elijah?
Thank you for stopping by.
What business did he have with him?
It is very late,
Zechariah was up to something. If you just tell me,
and I must put my wife to bed.
I was with him right before he. If I hadn't been there, I don't think he would have.
Noah, I know you loved my son. In ways that no one else could, but Elijah is gone, Noah, by his own hand. And we cannot entertain any more ideas that there was anything that any of us could do. Please go.
Henry Thomas.
Oh, no more.
Viola and Hildegard enter.
We cannot take any more today, Hildegard. We are broken people.
As are we.
You, I know you.
Most know me as the vulture.
You brought someone to pick our bones.
Look at me, Mr. Gableton. Really, look at me. I know my reputation precedes me, but I do not want to buy your company.
Then spit it out so you can leave us in peace.
I can recalibrate what you've created. I have the capital and the distribution contracts, but it means I would buy out Hildegard's shares and take on 50% of ownership.
Her shares that belong to my son, they're gone.
If you want to fail, then give into his forgery and fail. But this is your out. If you want to survive, adapt. Surrender to change. Accept my investment.
Why on earth would you do any of this?
Viola gives a little laugh. She steps out of the bedroom and gently beckons for someone. She returns, holding the hand of a young boy. Henry Thomas and Alice realize they're looking at their grandson. As they struggle with their emotion, Viola examines the portraits hanging all around them.
The last time I stood in this room, I was a scared little girl. All of these menacing faces. She could barely breathe for their disdain of her. But it wasn't they who cast her out. It was you. She went on to go through horrible, unspeakable, and even wonderful things. And somehow, she's back in this room. but she doesn't see the stain in her faces anymore, in their faces anymore. Mr. Gableton, she sees hope. A chance if you'll only reach out and take it.
Henry Thomas looks up to the portraits of his ancestors, the greats and the greatest, all weighing on him expectantly. The little boy stumbles a few steps toward him, interrupting his thoughts. Filled with emotion, he can only nod. Viola holds out her hand and he shakes it. Scene 10. Epilogue. A shiny new plaque reading, "In remembrance of Elijah Gableton," underneath a large frame. Elijah sits in the frame still. Hildegard enters, carrying a suitcase.
Husband,
He sets the suitcase down, taking the portrait in.
you would have hated this. There are changes you might have gotten behind. Once we got to the bottom of Zachariah's forgery, things worked themselves out.
In a separate space, Viola, Lizzie, and Noah surround Zachariah, who is bound to a chair.
We regret to inform you that Gableton Incorporated will not be accepting your offer.
But we think you'll find our counter offer as poetic,
Which will it be, friend? Your left?
or you're right.
Use carefully.
Viola pulls out of the book.
I'd hate to take off more than I'm owed.
I gave Henry Thomas a choice.
You didn't give me one.
The scene fades out as Hildegard continues.
Viola, Daisy, as you know her, boss of the business renamed Gableton Family Incorporated.
The separate space transitions to Viola, who explains blueprint to a factory worker as Henry Thomas lays with his grandson.
The mold should be in by Wednesday. We'll melt down the steel from the old wells in the storage and Harrington, you'll train the new men on the floor this week. I want them ready for production by the end of the month. Understood?
The factory workers disperse.
Henry Thomas is still adjusting, but I think deep down he's glad to be handing over the reins, especially the family. He has your eyes. But the rest of it is Viola. I think you'd want it that way. But honestly, I'm not sure. Husband, I discovered since your death that I knew you so very little. But the parts I was allowed to know I miss very much. And other parts, I'm still so angry at.
In the separate space, Noah enters, examining a letter and looking for an exact address. He does not see Alice until he is almost upon her. They both freeze for a moment.
What I wouldn't give to have those last few moments back with you, to do things differently.
Alice tries to reach out to Noah in an obvious gesture of amends, but Noah has none of it, avoiding her touch and hurries away coldly.
You want to take back my anger, to change how I expressed it.
Alice pulls herself together and makes her way to Henry Thomas, who is with Viola and their grandson. He runs up to greet her warmly as Viola watches warily.
I asked Viola once how she handled all the pain of the past. She said to me that she had to choose.
Choose what to remember. It isn't lying to yourself, but rather directing the evil.
Controlling the life.
Having the choice.
The little boy runs up and slips his hand into his mother's. They walk together a few paces before he stops her and calls back to his grandparents. They look to Viola, who nods. At her approval, Henry Thomas and Alice joins them. And they take their place as a family in a framed portrait.
Some days I don't even know where to begin with the past, but I'll continue to try.
Noah comes upon Hildegard, standing at Elijah's portrait, a moment of uncertainty.
I would have thought you'd left by now.
Afternoon, actually.
I'll be out of your hair, please. I just received no
It
asking.
was out of December.
Why?
Hildegard pulls out the pocket watch and hands it to him.
We want you to have that. This portrait doesn't really do him justice.
Not in the slightest.
I've been remembering a moment caption better.
Probably one involving mischief.
Sure.
So. Greece.
Sparta. Kind of pilgrimage.
Hope you find what you're looking for.
I know you are.
He nods and leaves her, taking his place in a frame. She looks back at Elijah's portrait.
Am I going to everything? But if I do, if I must, I'll think of that boy who stole a book and ripped his shirt so that I could read it in secret. That is more than enough legacy for me.
Hildegard picks up her suitcase and takes in all the framed portraits, now filled with the faces of people who will soon be distant memories. The portraits fade out until Elijah's is the only one left. She studies it one final time, then leaves it all behind. End of play. Okay, quick, 5
And then we if you would like to join us, come back, please join us on the stage. You can also sit on this side.
I know, it looks fine to me. What is?
Oh, I'm sorry, the talk back. Yes.
Oh, I didn't know he was. Rachel looks so pure and saintly.
Everybody.
She looks like an angel. She does.
Definitely didn't dress for the show.
Friends.
Yeah, I know, and like,
Oh, there's different angles.
This like,
That's funny. I see the stragglers hiding in the corner. Don't be shy, guys.
Yeah.
Come sit down.
Come sit.
Come sit with us. Come stay with us.
you can do whatever you like, but you can stand, you can lie down. Lay in a fetal position.
It's good. We got someone guarding the office over there. That's good. Yeah. Don't be shy. And I think Haley is here. Yes.
Yeah.
There she is.
Oh, thank you so much, everyone. Beautiful work. Beautiful work.
Yeah. Yeah. So these aren't super serious things, but it's helpful. It's helpful to get feedback from the audience. We want to. There are a few primal human urges: the urge for air, water, food, sex, and then to rewrite someone else's play. We're going to try and suppress the last one a little bit. So we're just going to follow like a gentle protocol here. First, one of the most helpful things is to find out what images, ideas, moments really like popped out to you in an exciting or positive way.
The chase, I feel like there were many chases.
Chases. Good.
The ideas of what it's like to be a woman and also a man from both of those perspectives was great. Or what people expect of those roles.
I'll start calling on people.
I like
know,
to pocket watch throughout.
Portraits.
I love acknowledging the concept that just because you've been mutilated down there doesn't mean like you don't function sexually. So it's just not true.
Good.
The blanket, the unraveling of it. I didn't catch whether or not that was what was intended, but the unraveling of the blanket that was the pseudo child to become the noose. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Kudos to the actors for, like I said, I warned Haley. I was like, so the staging, we got through most of Act 1, parts of. I gave him some ideas for Act 2 and said, good luck. But yeah, I do want to extend a kudos to the actors for just jumping in and being game, and this is an adaptation still in process, but I think getting closer and closer. Just from the actors too, things you really moments you enjoyed or felt caught up in when you were doing it.
I always like the moments where characters are repeating their previous lines, but with like the new context and it being kind of out of body. I thought that those were really interesting.
I really liked, I think Kristen, I was always really just drawn to, like anytime I was just watching you or in the scene with you, I just thought that you were so connected to Alice. And I really thought everyone really did amazing and I was like just impressed, but I was just really like always drawn to like your performance. I loved it and you were so committed and I was gonna say I loved it.
Well, I was gonna say that for me, I felt like the work was working on me, like your writing was working on me, so it just affected me. I didn't have to, it just was there because the story was so good and the character was so deep that it wasn't hard. So that's a tribute to your writing. Beautiful play.
Oh, sounds out.
Yeah.
You're having a monologue and it's just, no, I said that was very kind. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Cool. Any other things that popped out that you really enjoyed or things you're like, oh, I'll have to think about that for a while? Uma.
The moment where Alice is talking to Noah and she's got the bottle and she goes, can you do me a favor? I fully lost my shit. Like, it was instant. I knew what was going to happen. I don't know if that's what you wanted, but the moment she said that, I was like, and I know exactly what's going to happen. This is going to be a whole thing. And I'm terrified. I just talked about it with Rachel. I was like, it was literally like watching a car crash. Like I couldn't look away, but I wanted to look away. And I just was devastated by it. So that was a huge moment for me. And then also the moment where Noah is chasing Elijah, that moment that they have, I think it's in the garden. That moment that they have together was a moment where I was like, oh, there's something romantic happening there. And I don't know if that was also something that you wanted to happen in that space, but it felt like a romantic moment, being chased in the garden and couple things. So yeah, those are two big things for me.
I really liked all the scenes where you have the characters speaking off stage and like that was like a part of the scene. I thought that was so fascinating every time I would read it because it's so true when you are thinking of something and you think of other people that have said things to you and like it affects you. And so I really love that. And I also like the double space where it's something's happening at the same time or like at a different time period, but you're watching it the same. And I think the scene with the doctors and then Elijah and her also having the argument at the same time, I thought that it was just, it's such a complex thing to write. I don't even know how you did it and to make it even make sense. And it was just a really, really cool to be a part of.
Yeah, I loved that part too with the wedding ceremony and the choice of words for each character, for better, for worse, for richer, for poor. It fit so, it was so cool how it fit with the characters.
I like the moment when Hildegard realizes that men are supposed to have balls.
That's great. So baby. Learning.
That's good. I like the moment with the t-shirt, the rag, where like she's like fully getting off with that rag. Yeah.
When Zachariah busted out that jar, I was like, oh, damn. Yeah, I was like, why? He's at the funeral, he's like, bam.
That's great. That's nice.
Stop it. She said that's nuts if you didn't hear the pun, the funny pun. Like nuts, get it? I just can't hear the laughing. I think it's for me.
I was gonna say, I liked how you had all these characters doing like terrible, cool, unforgivable things that made me really hate them and think that they were just like, I was never gonna like see their side, and then they would say something and I'd be like, oh, fuck, okay. I don't forgive them for that, but like, I feel a little sorry for them in this moment. So, yeah, that was really good.
Except for Zachariah.
Yeah. Naming qualities there.
Yeah.
You can't bring that jar to a funeral and then expect. So, Haley, do you have any specific questions you want to put out to the audience?
I think this is really helpful hearing some of these like popcorn things. I was going to ask, because you have brought up the jar, and part of me is like, is it a step too far? Is it too out of, like, because it is a wild, it's a wild ride from the beginning. I heard a lot of like laughter in the beginning, the first scene when like it's like, I'm gonna take his manhood, and I heard some like titters of laughter. And I understand though the world is a wild one. I have debated taking the jar out of the story. It's like a step too far for Zachariah. But I'm curious if that resonates with you all, or if you feel like it stays within the wild world we've gone on the journey into.
I love the jar.
I love
love
the jar.
Yeah, and the effect it had on the audience was like, no, he did not.
I was curious because I couldn't hear the second half.
No, everyone was like,
Yeah.
they were shocked. Yeah, because the
Yeah.
first act was very vocal from the audience. The second act was much more quiet, and I was like, oh no, we've lost them. But that is very helpful to know.
And I think it justifies when Zachariah gets tied up and like
right.
gets his
Yeah.
one of his testicles or both. I don't know what Viola did, but like I think it almost it's sort of like I don't know what the right
It
word is.
justifies it more.
Yeah,
The way that not just
it's vindicating for the audience in a way. I was like, yes, cut his balls. Stick him in a jar. Yeah, I think it's good.
That's helpful. Thank you.
I do want to know though if it was like trying to like a completion, right? Because his body is there, but you know, like. You know, his
That's
body-
really funny. In a writer's group, when I first wrote this as a screenplay back in 2020, and when I brought in the first 10 pages is that castration scene, and there was like a running joke in my writers group where they were like, you need to confirm the peen. Like they just kept saying confirm the peen. It was like a running ongoing writers group like joke. And like, is it there? What's there? What is physically there? I see it as a castration. I mentioned, I think Nathaniel is like talking about the geldings. He worked in the stables. He worked on the manor, the Gableton plantation farm, and was used to kind of working with animals in that way. And so I see it as just a castration.
Mhm.
No, I like what I think, tell me if you're wrong, but the idea at the end when he puts the jar on the coffin, reuniting Elijah in death with the manhood.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
just
because that was the thing that I couldn't stop thinking about was
Good.
while because the jar just sat there, I think, for the rest of the show.
Yeah, I turned to Isaac. I was like, you brought a jar. You literally put a jar in there. It's great.
Right. So that was the thing I was thinking about because it does talk the play does talk very much about, you know, men and women and gender roles. And so I was like, is this a mockery? Is this is this, he always had it all along, even though he didn't have his balls? Was it like, it just, I don't think it's a bad thing, I think it's a great thing, but it did make me think and almost fixate on it. Since it was there.
And the repetition of like, are you a man now? You're a man
Right.
now, you know, yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. Are you a man? What is the cost of your manhood or something,
Mhm.
whatever the dad's line is?
Yeah.
Right, and it's just sitting there in a jar.
Can't even put him in the fucking coffin with you.
Yeah.
Another thing I was curious, because this is the first time we've played with this small of a cast and playing some of the like I call it like a Greek chorus role, that some of the actors switching from character to character quickly. And we in this, like Isaac played with men playing women and women playing men, and I was just curious how that felt from the ensemble, from those individual actors. I think, I'm so sorry, I don't know everyone's name. I think David was playing the actor playing Zachariah and Edda, and I'm just curious how that felt when you were playing opposite of that, if that felt interesting. Did that enhance the gender role theme throughout? Did anything hit differently? That is something I'm curious about.
I felt that the Winnie role was very challenging because the character trans, and I didn't know how to make, if I wanted to make her more feminine or more masculine in the tone and in my actions and whatnot. But then I felt liberated, just like, well, I can just be who I am. Like I can just, you know what I mean? Like I can just go with it and not even worry about it. But the Edda though, she was fun because it was like she was just like this busybody, and
Work of art.
yeah.
David.
Yeah.
You're Edda.
Yeah. I love it.
I love the Edda. You found like this Moira Rose like vowel. It was the oolong, the different T's. It was just beautiful. It was a really fun element that I'd never heard before.
True fact is that I had a horrible time pronouncing the DT. Yeah, and I still can't pronounce it. So I was like, I'm just gonna like fuck it up.
You did great. It was great. Keep it forever. It's amazing.
Speaking of Edda, I really liked the relationships of the mothers to Elijah and to Hildegard. I thought that was really interesting, seeing the two moms like interact with their kids, and like I thought that was really, out of all the relationships, I was really interested in those characters' relationships with each other, the moms and their children, and a lot of Alice talking about how motherhood has a burden to it and you can easily hurt someone without ever touching them. I really loved like that kind of relationship that was shown a lot, especially in the first act. I really liked it a lot.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions, Haley?
I think most of my questions got answered. Just hearing out loud was really helpful, and I mean, just we've been working. This cast I used to be much bigger, and especially with going from a screenplay with lots of different characters, cutting it down. So just the act of seeing it like this was so incredibly helpful. And then just your feedback, also just wonderful. There's so many wonderful moments in the performances that I know I've heard about these many times from Isaac, but I don't know why. It wasn't until I started watching, I'm like, oh, this is like a staged reading. It's not like, I don't know. I know there wasn't going to be like stands and chairs, but like my brain was like, oh my God, they're like doing the play. So it was such a lovely surprise and treat. So thank you for going like on the crazy wild ride of this.
Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Does anyone have any final like burning comment or question?
I feel like this next heartbreak of the world, and I can't wait for it to get produced. So thank you for that. The best way. It ripped my heart out many times.
Thank you. There's a part of me that gets like very in my head about this particular like tone of a piece. Like I see things going up in New York all the time and I'm like, I feel like a weirdo because like this is I write a lot of period pieces and but like a weird, strangely fucked up kind of sexual trauma piece that this is, and exploring like what it's like to be this actually is based on I don't know if you've seen the mini series called Alias Grace.
That's so good.
Yeah, it's a very it's a really like cool, beautiful Margaret Atwood mini series. But there's a scene in which like one of the women has to get an abortion at the time, which like she ends up like dying from. And I remember watching it and thinking like, what would happen if her father she had a father that would fight for her the way she needed to be fought for? And that's kind of where this came from, and like the relationships of parents with children and gender roles. I kind of live in that, and so it was really helpful to hear that you even liked it. There are parts of me that like get really like have shame about what I like to write about, so that really means a lot. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, there was a whole show in and of itself, if you could have watched Julie's face.
Yeah. And I did.
She had like audible gasps of like, oh my gosh, you're clutching her face. I was just having like the best time. Like, yeah, like she's gonna.
But
makes my
Julie, were you the one that yelled no when Noah was in the room with Hildegard?
I said immediately no. I was really, really upset. I was so invested in Hildegard. And I was really like devastated for her, but also happy for her in the end too. Like, and I don't know, like the correlation between her father dying by the noose and then also Elijah dying by the noose felt like weirdly, oddly beautiful. Like she's being liberated into this next chapter of her life because her father had this contingency with her dowry that she needed to wed and have a child, and like society was putting all this pressure on her, and then she had this relationship with Elijah that was so strained, and it was like kind of beautifully fucked up that they both ended their lives, but it liberated her. So yeah, I was really rooting for Hildegard, so that truly ripped my heart out that moment. I was devastated for her. Yeah,
I did wonder, based on the descriptions of her father, I was like, why did he have those contingencies? And like,
he didn't.
Oh,
Yeah, it was the wife.
She lied.
Yeah,
Just
yeah, she totally lied.
Yeah.
No, that is helpful.
You read that part.
He lied about having spent the money, and I was like, oh, she just spent all of the money that was left for her, but she wasn't able to access it until those things. I just thought that the mom was just spending her money. It was that was what I was. Yeah. I just thought the mom was spending her money. Thank you for being on board with me. Fellow confusion.
All right. This is the last call for burning comments, questions.
Just another effect I noticed on the audience is when everyone found out that situation with the dowry, like everyone was like, they really felt for Hildegard when they were like, no. So that was cool to read on the audience.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was a moment that like you just can't see it unless you're in the room, and like it happens. You know, like that's wonderful. Thank you.
It is burning, actually. Maybe I missed it, like Tristan missed, but why does Zachariah like literally hate them so much?
That was another question.
I got out to keep the balls. I think the balls are great, but we have to know why he's that crazy.
That was personal.
Yeah, that's a good question. For me in my mind, that Zachariah like grew up very poor and worked for the Gableton household and felt like he was being put down most of his life. There's a moment I've sort of thought about maybe elaborating a little bit with Henry Thomas at the funeral where he references that. But he has a grudge against the Gabletons because he had to work and he was seen as beneath them. I think Alice even calls him a nothing person when she references Nathaniel as a nothing person, but the way they look down at people who have nothing or they're like the help, the way they treat Daisy is like the Gabletons are a privileged family and they treat people as such, and it's not till the end I think that they do grow. So I think that Zachariah feels that and holds that against them, and like putting it to them has been like a grudge he's had most of his life. Enough to keep balls in a jar.
For years.
I mean, who doesn't have a couple jars from your enemies somewhere? All right. Thank you all so much. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for staying. Thanks for doing the talk back. Can we get another hand for this amazing cast? Can we get a hand for Kasusha and Rachel, everyone, and Mary, Randy for putting all this together. Super wonderful and amazing. Thank you all so much. I hope you guys go hang out, talk about the play, finish up the snacks. Don't drink and drive, but maybe find a designated. Go have a bit of wine. Dionysus, the god of wine and theater. Pay a little homage. And I hope you talk about the play and much fun you had. And thanks for being a part of this.
Yes, thank you. If you're ever in New York, look me up. Come play in New York if you're there. Come look me up.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
More fantastic job, guys. Yeah, go. You did an awesome job. All of you crushed it. Here's your pens.